Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about reading, specifically how to read more. Now, I personally don't think I read that much compared to other bookish content creators on YouTube, but since September of 2021, my reading per month has shot up a lot, and I feel like I finally started to crack the code. So I thought today I would give you some of my tips and tricks for how I started to read more. So let's get right into it. Starting off, I want to say a quick tangent because I really think reading is one of the best hobbies you possibly can have, mostly because books are so accessible, because libraries are one of the last free parts of our society. They are a very precious resource, so if you have the option, definitely consider donating to your local library, either monetarily or if you have some relatively recently released books, you might be able to donate them. Okay, getting into the tips, the first one I have is to read books that genuinely interest you and not ones that people say are necessary for you to be a good reader or just because the book is popular. This may seem like a no-brainer, but you will be surprised how much reading a book that you don't have any interest in can tank your whole mood and send you into a reading slump. Another thing is that with BookTube, there can be a feeling of kind of peer pressure or FOMO with certain books, and you kind of get in this mindset of, well, the book is so popular, so therefore it must be good. But no book is going to work for everyone, and if it's not something that genuinely intrigues you or the writing style is getting in the way of your enjoyment of it, you don't have to keep reading. As you read more, you'll see things in common with the books that you liked and the books that you didn't like, and that can inform you to help you find books that are similar to your favorites in the future. Which leads me to tip number 2, which is finding your genres or niche. These types of books can become your tried and true that you can always go back to. If you end up reading something that sends you into a slump, you can use this to kind of bounce back so that you can feel energized and excited to read again. Again, this may take time as you bounce around to different genres to see what you like, but eventually finding that one small niche that has everything you want in an ideal book will be worth it in the end. So far, we've talked about the internal side of book choices impacting how much you read. Now let's talk about the medium in which you read your books. So tip number 3 is to try out audiobooks. So for me, I do still like physical reading a lot, but the thing that boosted my reading overall was getting into audiobooks. And that basically came down to me turning time that I didn't have for physical reading into time where I was audiobook reading. Because I still have a commute with my job, I used to spend my time waiting for the bus by just listening to music. But now I have audiobooks, so I can get a lot more done and accomplish more reading by starting and ending my day by enjoying a book. Tip number 4 is having a set schedule for reading. This can play into what I just was talking about with having a routine of listening to my audiobook while I was on my commute. But even if you aren't listening to audiobooks, just having a set time of day when you are dedicated to reading is a great way to build that habit and read more. I think a big thing people need to realize is that reading is a hobby, and any hobby will take up a lot of your time. So if you aren't able to set aside a lot of time for that hobby, that is probably the reason why you're not reading as much as you want to be. I personally think that if I had reading as my only hobby, then I would be one of those people that reads like 200 books a year. But because I have other hobbies that divide my time up, I obviously don't have as much time to dedicate just for reading. I feel like I just said hobby like 1,000 times. Personally, for me, it works on my schedule to have my designated reading time when I'm not listening to my audiobooks to read before bed. Another option is to read during times when you know you normally would be just scrolling aimlessly on your phone. I do think that books can take a lot more mental energy than just mindlessly scrolling on your phone. But I think a lot of that hesitation comes from that initial activation energy and getting used to doing a new task. But as you do it more and more, you'll develop a impulse not to scroll on your phone, but read instead. Okay, shifting gears slightly here to talk not about reading more, but necessarily reading faster. Because you might have all the time in the world, but let's say you're a very slow reader, so what do you do? One thing that I think is really helpful is to pick books that are written in a way that's easier to understand. If you are reading Shakespeare or a classic that has a sort of non-traditional way of speaking, it's going to be harder for you to get through it. One thing I think that has worked really well for me is reading books that are below my grade level. And what I mean by that is I'm at the threshold of new adult and adult books, so when I read a young adult book, I can usually fly through it really fast. And that doesn't mean they aren't emotionally deep or important works. It just means that the lens they're told through is inherently going to be more accessible because they're targeting a younger audience. Another option for reading faster is to literally test yourself by doing like online speed quizzes and then read blogs on this topic to see exercises to help with your reading speed. A big thing I've implemented from these tests is not going back and reading through the same page over and over, and instead try to read at a pace that lets me take in all the understanding the first time, but also not reading each word aloud in my head. Basically, it comes down to finding a pace that lets you comprehend everything that's essential the first time so you don't have to go back through and read over the same page over and over. A big thing also is obviously that practice does make perfect, so the more you read, the more used to reading you will become. And you will then learn which parts you're able to skip over or move faster through and still comprehend all the essential things. Another thing that comes with reading faster is trying to boost your reading comprehension as well as your speed. A thing that I think is good is to take notes at the end of chapters of everything that happened, because it'll help you understand the big themes or plot points that the story is trying to convey to you. Another part of thinking or reflecting about the story you read is that at the end of the book, you can write a plot summary with all the key events, character lists, things you liked about the book, and things you would want to change. For nonfiction, I also recommend looking through the author's works cited for future reading. You can also look up people's reviews in scholarly essays or book reviews on blogs. Another way you can reflect is by talking to your friends or making a video about it. I think getting started with a book club with your friends or family is a great way to both hold yourself accountable to continue to read and have a place where you can work through the thoughts that you have as you read a book. All of these things can help you engage with the book more and make you a better reader. So those are my tips and tricks for reading more. I thought this would be a good video to put out early on in the year because I'm sure a lot of people right after New Year's are having a resolution to try and read more in 2022. But if you're not watching this video at the beginning of the year, you really can start this process at any point. In fall of 2020, I remember thinking to myself that I wanted to read more, and I'm glad that I decided to not set it as a goal for the future and instead act on it immediately, because I didn't really need to wait for some arbitrary change in the calendar to get started on a goal. So wherever you are watching this, take this as a sign that you should start reading. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you aren't already. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!